Hello students, let's revise the topic and subtopics. We have already discussed about the phase before the Industrial Revolution, is also known as proto-industrialization. We have already discussed the coming of the factories. Though factory came up in Britain in 1730s, but factories could not displace the traditional industries, and the pace of industrial change. Though factories were setting up in 18th centuries, but it was not well accepted by merchants and traders because machines were costly and their repairing was costly. The second topic was hand labor and steam power. As you are aware, a steam engine was invented by Newcomen, and later on it was developed by James Watt. And the model was made or manufactured by Boulton, one of Newcomen's friend, but it took long to be accepted by the merchants or traders. And we have already discussed about the life of workers. Workers migrated from rural areas to urban areas in search of jobs, but it was difficult to get a job for those who did not have their social contacts or family members. They had to wait for long for job, and they had to sleep either in night shelters or under bridges. Now we will start our third topic. If you have textbook, please open page number 113, 113. Industrialization in the colonies, as India was one of the colonies of British. If you are aware, before the machine industries, India was dominant exporter of silk and cotton textiles. Though number of countries were producing coarse cotton, but finer quality was produced by India alone. India mainly traded in silk and cotton textiles through pre-colonial seaports, Surat and Hooghly. Surat on the Gujarat coast and Hooghly in Bengal had traded links with Southeast Gulf and other Asian ports. A variety of Indian merchants and bankers were involved in network of export trade. They were mainly involved in financing production, carrying goods and supplying exporters. Supplying merchants linked the port towns to the inland regions. In 1750s, network controlled by Indian merchant started breaking down because in 1757, when British Army defeated Sirajuddaulah, who was the Nawab of Bengal, when he defeated the Nawab of Bengal in the Battle of Plassey in 1757, that paved the way for British to capture political and economic power of India. As the European powers started gaining power in India, like British, Dutch, French and Portuguese. First they wanted to secure concessions from the local court and then monopoly rights to trade. British succeeded to get monopoly rights over Indian trade. Ports, we had pre-colonial ports, Surat and Hooghly we have already discussed. Through these ports, merchants made lot of money, made lot of fortune. At the time, the gross value was over 16 million pounds, that fell to 3 million pounds within a short period of time. In 1740, we see the decline in pre-colonial ports. New ports emerged like Bombay and Calcutta. This shows the shift of power from local to the colonial power. These ports were controlled by European powers and goods were carried by European ships. Let's see, these changes affected the life of workers. What happened to weavers? British cotton industries had not yet expanded in India, and Indian fine textiles were in high demand in European countries. The French, Dutch, Portuguese as well as local traders were always in competition to get Indian woven clothes because it was made of fine variety of cotton. Due to the competition, merchants used to get best price. Once East India Company gained political power, it secured monopoly right to trade in India and it developed a system which could eliminate competition. They wanted to control cost and ensure regular supplies in cotton and silk goods. It was done by various ways. First, company eliminated existing traders and brokers who were connected with cloth trade and established direct control to weavers. No brokers in between the company and the weavers. And company appointed a paid servant called Gomastas. The work of the Gomastas to supervise weavers, collect supplies and examine the quality. Second, it prevented company weavers from dealing with other buyers. They used to give loans to the weavers to produce goods for them. It was weavers' greed that they wanted to earn more money, so they took loans. Indian peasants, they had small plots of land. They gave their land to the company on lease. But soon we find there was a clashes between weavers and Gomastas. Because Gomastas did not have social connections with local weavers. They used to beat weavers. They usually came with sepoys, beat weavers and gave them physical punishments. So for weavers, there was no space for bargaining because they had already taken loan from the company. Even company prices were low. In many places like Carnatic and Bengal, weavers left and returned villages and started cultivating their land. The next subtopic is Manchester comes to India. Open page 116, 116. Manchester comes to India. In 1772, an English official stated that Indian textiles could never reduce if no other nation produced goods of the same quality. As we have already discussed, finer variety cotton produced in India was the best quality cotton, and there was a great demand of Indian cotton in international market. And you will surprised to know, in the year 1811 and 12, there was 33% export from India, while it declined to 3% in the year 1850-51. Why did this happen? Do you know the reason? I tell you. There are two reasons to import any goods. First reason, if that product is not available in the country, or the same product is cheaper in other countries. As cotton industries developed in England, merchants or traders of England began worrying. They were worried because their goods were costlier than Indian ones, and Indian cotton was cheaper and best in quality. So merchants were importing Indian cotton. So local merchants and industrialists in England could not sell their goods not only in local markets but in international markets also. So industrialists in Britain pressurized the government to impose import duties on cotton textiles so that Manchester goods could sell in Britain without facing any competition from outsiders or outside traders. At the same time, industrialists persuaded the East India Company to sell British manufacturers in Indian markets also. Exports of British goods or British manufacturers in India increased dramatically in the early 19th century. But by 1850, cotton piece goods constituted over 31% of the value of Indian imports. And by the 1870s, this figure was over 50%. Cotton weavers in India faced two problems at the same time. As their export market collapsed and the local market shrank, because Manchester goods were cheaper than Indian goods and was machine made and largely available in local markets as well as international markets. By the 1850s, reports from the most of the weaving regions of India narrated stories, it is given in your textbook, of decline and desolation. By the 1860s, weavers faced a new problem. Let's see what was the problem. They could not get sufficient supply of raw cotton of good quality because good quality cotton was exported to European countries by the East India Company from India. When the Civil War broke and cotton supplies from the US were cut off, Britain turned to India. As raw cotton exports from India increased, the price of raw cotton shot up. The local traders were getting good prices of cotton by exporting cotton to Britain. Weavers in India were starved and supplies and forced to buy raw cotton at exorbitant prices. Then, by the end of the 19th century, weavers and other craftspeople faced yet another problem. Factories in India began production, flooding the market with machine goods. How could weaving industries possibly survive? Now we can imagine if machine goods are flooded in Indian market, so it was difficult for Indian weavers to survive.